In one of the biggest upset in recent New York voting history, Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani has declared victory in the Democratic mayoral primary over former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has conceded the race.
All right, joining us right now to break it all down is Ben Max. He's the director at New York Law School Center for New York City and State Law, and he's also host of the Max Politics podcast.
All right.
I think we're all trying to figure out what happened last night, Ben Max.
A lot of shell shock, I think. But I didn't expect this outcome. I don't think anybody really expected this to be over on primary night, but it speaks to the campaign that Zohran Mamdani and his followers and supporters ran. It speaks to the weaknesses of Andrew Cuomo's brand and campaign. But I think almost above everything else, we saw the emergence of a new superstar in the political landscape in Zohran Mamdani. We knew he was a strong communicator. We knew, he had a lot of charisma, but he turned out to be a political star unlike most other people.
So was it because Andrew Cuomo had flaws that he lost, or was it because he really did not get the backing of the Democratic Party? Because Zohran's campaign was very, very well organized. They told you exactly how to vote when you went in there. And there was nothing from, Andrew Cuomo's campaign on what to do when you got in the voting booth.
Well, they really just wanted people to come out and vote for him, and it wasn't a ranked choice voting strategy because they just wanted people to go in there and rank him number one. But you get at a key point. There is no real Democratic Party establishment right now in New York City or New York State, and this is something that...
Or the country.
Well, yes, they're struggling as well outside of New York. But this is something that should result in a lot of introspection among the county leaders, in the different boroughs who backed him and were not able to pull out the vote for him. But also, this was a deeply flawed candidate coming in, having resigned as governor 4 years ago. He came in with very high unfavorables in the polls, even though he was leading them early on, and a lot of baggage. And then he just didn't run a spirited campaign, and his campaign also was not targeted on the key issues facing New Yorkers. We saw that coming out of the presidential election with New York moving towards Trump, obviously not voting for Trump, but moving towards him. And Mamdani focused on affordability, and Cuomo did not.
How much of this really then, because we do want to acknowledge Mamdani winning, but how much of this was about Mamdani and his campaign, or about Cuomo and the high negatives and so many people just going, anybody but Cuomo?
If this was closer, or it did go to the ranked choice tally for us to really be seeing where the second place votes and all that go, I would say maybe more Cuomo, but you have to give the Mamdani movement an immense amount of credit. He's got over 500,000 votes basically at this point. Now, you could say in a city of 5 million voters, that's still a relatively low percentage, but it's about who comes out to vote. And this is a very strong showing. They expanded the electorate. He got younger people out to vote who haven't been voting. He got South Asians to see themselves in him and come out to vote. He's doing pretty well with Latino voters, which was a little bit of a surprise. So it's a lot of credit to the candidate and the movement behind him, because they also had the field operation, as you're sort of getting at, but then they had the online explosion, too, that broke through. It wasn't just a political online. It was breaking through to influencers and athletes and supermodels and you name it. A really impressive campaign there.
So just to spin it just a little bit forward to November as we digest all of this, he went from 1% polling in February to winning this thing 43% as of now in June, in 4 months. He still got to get to November. And we've seen Eric Adams already on Fox News, cutting him down, calling him a snake oil salesman, all this. This is going to turn really negative. Can he carry that momentum for that much longer, especially with so many first-time voters on his side?
They're going to be excited to vote for him again in the general election. His supporters will remain, I think, very strong. But the electorate becomes very different in the general election. You add in 1 million independents in New York, you add in 500,000 or so Republicans, and you have a lot more Democrats who don't vote in primaries who vote in the general. So it's a different electorate. Mamdani, in his favor, though, you've got a deeply flawed, problematic, moderate Democrat again who he gets to go up against. So different electorate, different election. Eric Adams does have a record to run on. Ironically, one of the things that helped Mamdani is that Eric Adams and his police commissioner and the city have been bringing crime down. And that helped the election maintain to be about affordability.
People really like Police Commissioner Tisch. They also like Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro, who's involved with Mayor Adams. Okay, so what happens? Does Curtis Lee, when take the election?
Well, one of the big questions, and we only have probably days for Republicans to figure this out, is if they're going to try to make a deal with Curtis Sliwa where he does not run and they try to get behind Eric Adams. I mean, when you see a Democratic socialist win the Democratic primary, it raises some alarm bells, I think, for a lot of people.
So could Eric Adams become a Republican candidate?
There's a slight chance. I don't think that's going to happen, but there is potential for that discussion to happen. I don't even know if Eric Adams wants to run on the Republican
I was going to
line.
ask, why would he?
Well, he would only want to do that to get Curtis Sliwa and his potential to take 30% of the vote or so off the table. Because if Eric Adams and Curtis Sliwa are competing for all the moderates, the conservatives, it's going to be a difficult road. If it's much more of an Eric Adams versus Zohran Mamdani one-on-one, then Eric Adams has a better chance. So
would there
that's
be
the
Republicans
balance.
that would not vote for Adams regardless, even if he switched the party? And then the flip side for me, since we're going to talk about this, is why would Sliwa give it up if he's this close and he can see the battle going on?
Yes, exactly. It would have to be President Trump weighing in, you name it, in these next few days to really think about that. I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm saying that's one of the big questions right now on the table about what the field will look like for the general election. I don't think Andrew Cuomo runs on his independent line. He didn't seem like he's got more fight in him. But this election is now, the focus on Zohran Mamdani coming out of this is now going to be even more intense than it was in the primary. So it's going to be a lot of both support for him and scrutinization of his record, of what he's running on. There's a big general election here to come, especially since the primary's now been in June, so you've got a longer runway to November.
One last question from me here. Is Andrew Cuomo finished, or is he going to run as an independent, you think?
I don't think he keeps running. It didn't seem when he was conceding like he had a lot more sort of vigor in him to keep going, but I also think he wants to potentially leverage that ballot line he has, so he's going to be having some conversations with people, and we'll see. One of the most interesting things is he had a lot of labor behind him. What does labor do now? They are close with Eric Adams. He's been signing municipal contracts with the municipal unions. He's been good to the private sector unions. So are they going to go with the Democratic nominee for mayor, or are they going to stick with the incumbent? And, of course, Andrew Cuomo will have some sway with those folks as well.
It's kind of interesting because it used to be whoever won the Democratic primary was a shoo-in for November.
Yep.
Not so much this year.
No, we have a real general election, which is good for the city. There'll be a lot more discussion about where the city is and where it's heading. It'll now become, a lot of this primary was about Andrew Cuomo and his record and his scandals and all that. Now it's going to become a lot about how good a job is Eric Adams doing? What do voters make of the indictment and it being dropped because he got cozier with Trump? A lot of New Yorkers don't like that, obviously, but there are ways in which Eric Adams has been doing a good job as mayor. So now that gets to be part of the discussion as well.
Ben Max, always good to see you. The Max Politics Podcast, always an enjoyable listen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's check in with Mike on the weather. Mike?
All right, Dan, we got another hot day.